Video is for solving two-step equations, which would be Unit 4, Session 3, so 4.3. You can write that at the top of your page up here above where it says class period so that you can keep track. Now, in solving two-step equations, you're really going to just be taking what you learned in 4.1 and 4.2, which was solving equations using addition and subtraction and solving equations using multiplication and division. And now you're going to be merging them together. Okay, so our learning intention is to write and solve two-step equations. You will know that you're successful when you can apply properties of equality to produce equivalent equations, when you can solve two-step equations using the basic operations, and when you can apply two-step equations to solve real-life problems. Okay, so the first part you're going to do here is parts of the expression. I just want to make sure that you know what each of these are. Okay, so that's going to be your goal first, because when we get down here to where it says the steps to solve, if you can't tell me what each of these are, then when I break down the steps, you're not going to know what you're doing. Okay, so these are terms you've heard, but it's just a good reminder. So, what is the 2 in this term right here of 2x? So, remember, this is the number attached to the variable. So, you should be saying right now coefficient, because that is what the 2 would be. The coefficient is the number attached to the variable. So, coefficient. And then we just said this is the number attached to the variable. So what is x in this equation? It is the variable. Okay. And then we wonder, what is this number 1? What do we call that? Yes, it's a number, but it is a number without a variable, and that has its own name in algebraic expressions, and that is called the constant. So we're going to write constant right there. Okay. These are 3 terms that you need to make sure you know. We have talked about them in the past. Make sure you are familiar with them. The coefficient is the number attached to the variable. The variable is the symbol that represents an unknown number, and the constant is the number without a variable. Okay, so this video really should be pretty quick because we're just covering things we've already done. So here's the goal. Your goal, as it's been in the last 2 sections, is to get the variable by itself. So if I'm looking at this equation, I need to get x by itself. So I'm going to write variable. So reminder, whatever you do to one side, do to the other side. And here's a reminder of your inverse operations. Inverse operations are operations that undo each other. So if you have addition, you're going to use subtraction to get rid of it. If you have subtraction, use addition. Multiplication, you'll use division. If it's already division, then you're going to use multiplication. So if I was looking at this term, if I need to get the variable by itself, what do I need to get rid of? Okay, so here is the next part here where it says steps to solve. This is going to explain to you what you need to do. So 1, you're going to eliminate the constant term by adding or subtracting. So that's step 1. So if I was looking at this, my constant term is the 1. I need to do the inverse operation. So I would add 1 to both sides. So then I would get 2x equals 14. My next step, because that still doesn't get x by itself, right? My next step would be to eliminate the coefficient of the variable by multiplying or dividing. So eliminate the coefficient of the variable by multiplying or dividing. So here's my coefficient. So I, I got rid of my constant by adding it to both sides. Then I came with 2x equals 14. Now I need to get rid of my coefficient. Well, 2x is multiplication, so I know I need to divide. So I would divide by 2 on both sides. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So I know that x would equal 7. Let's try it out here at the guided practice on the bottom. So our first problem, let me move my paper here, maybe. Our first problem is t over 5, which, remember, a fraction is just another way of writing division. Okay, so t over 5 minus 8 equals 22. My first step is to eliminate the constant term by adding or subtracting. In this problem, the constant term is 8. I have to do the inverse operation, and since it's already subtraction, the inverse operation would be addition. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So 22 plus 8 is 30. If I have a negative 8 and I add 8, it becomes 0, right? So then I only have t over 5 left. So now I'm on to step 2. Eliminate the coefficient of the variable by multiplying or dividing. So this problem here is division. I'm dividing t by 5. T divided by 5 equals 30. So I would need to multiply 5 to get rid of it. So 5, because then this would end up being 5 over 5, which is 1. So that would get rid of my 5, and I'd be left with t. Whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other side. So t equals 30 times 5, which is 150. And I could go back in and I could put my 150 here for t. So I'd go 150 divided by 5 minus 8, and that should equal 22. Okay, let's look at this other problem. So my first step is to eliminate the constant term by adding or subtracting. My constant term in this problem is 7. This is addition, so my inverse operation is going to be subtraction. So I'm going to subtract the 7 to get rid of it, because if I have 7 and I need to make it 0, I'm going to go 7 minus 7, which is 0. So that's going to leave me with 5y on this side. But whatever I do to this side, I must do to this side. So 17 minus 7 becomes 10. And now I'm left with 5y equals 10. So my next step is to eliminate the coefficient of the variable by multiplying or dividing. This is multiplication. The 5y next to each other is saying 5 times y equals 10. So the inverse operation of multiplication would be division. So I'm going to divide by 5 to get y. Whatever I do to this side, I have to do to this side to keep the equation equivalent. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. And I realize that you cannot see that. Okay, so here's my 10 divided by 5, so y equals 2. So let's flip over the page. You are going to have some try-its for yourself, whether you pause the video now and do them or you do them when the video is completed. Either way is fine with me, but you do have to complete them. To get credit for these notes, you have to complete them all. Okay, this helps me know if you understand what you're doing. So get rid of the coefficient, get rid of the constant. What are you going to do? What's the inverse operation? Whatever you do to one side, do to the other side. Then get rid of your constant. Coefficient, goodness. So get rid of your constant, then get rid of your coefficient to get x by itself. Get rid of your constant, get rid of your coefficient. Okay, you're going to do that for all of these. The last part of this is just so you can get some real world application. Okay, it's pretty laid out for you, but I'll just run through it really quick. So I wrote some steps for you to be able to solve real world application problems. So we had a model problem here. It says Billy's Brilliant Bicycles rents bikes for $15 plus an additional $2 per hour. Jenny paid $21 to rent a bike. How many hours did she rent the bike? So your step 1 would be, what is the variable? So I have to figure out, I am trying to figure out the number of hours. How many hours? So I just said B is number of hours. Step 2, what is the total number of dollars paid? So then I'd have to look here. Jenny paid $21. Great, total. So that's my answer overall, right? So 21 is what I write for step 2. Step 3, build an equation with your constant term and your coefficient term. So I took 21 is my answer, and then it tells me $2 per hour. So she has to pay $15 plus an additional $2 for every hour, but I don't know how many hours. So it's going to be 2 times B, because we're looking to figure out how many hours, and then we had to an additional $15, right? So our equation would look like 21 equals 2B plus 15. Step 4 is now solving that. So we're going to use our knowledge of inverse operations to solve. So if I start here, I need to get rid of the constant term. So I'm going to subtract 15 by both sides, which gets me 21 minus 15, which is 6. So 6 equals 2b. Now I need to get rid of the coefficient. So that 2b is multiplication. So I'm going to divide 2 by both sides, which gets me 3 equals b. So Jenny rented the bike for 3 hours. Okay, you're going to just do something similar here. So 43 students went on a field trip to Mount Rushmore. So that's our answer. 5 buses were filled and 3 students traveled in cars. how many students were in each bus. So I'm going to say something like 43 equals 5s plus 3, and then you will solve. Okay, so you try that, see how you do. That is all there is for this lesson. Make sure you show it to me before you move on.